The 2025 Hungarian Grand Prix just took place. Let's go through how each team and driver has performed, starting with the worst performance of the race, ending with the highest scorers of the Grand Prix, starting with Alpine. And these guys were supposed to be last, so I'm not particularly surprised at their positioning, but two things that stood out was number one, Pierre Gasly's racecraft is still here and he was still defending people just like he was fighting in the points. Amazing to see that he is making the most out of a shitbox that has been given to him, basically. The other thing to talk about is the monumental incompetency of Alpine. So his pit stop, it was like 10 seconds long for some reason. I think they were just having fun. But either way, he still had good pace, still a confident weekend for him. I think he can go into the summer break thinking that, okay, I made some progress. It was the team screw up. He was not scoring any points, but he definitely could have finished ahead of where he started or around where he started. He just dropped plumb last. And Pierre Gasly lost a little bit of time by fighting to a lot of people around him. But overall, these guys just didn't have the pace. And Pierre said this in Thursday. He said that we have to be realistic about what we can do, knowing that we are not bringing in any upgrades and the focus is on 2026. And if there is a possibility for fighting for wins and podiums and pole positions in the next season, then he will gladly endure a dogshit season. And it is a dogshit season. I think these guys are going to be dead last on the constructor standings, unless some crazy race happens and then Pierre Gasly is on the podium. So unless that happens, until that point of time, these guys will be dead last. Up next, we have Haas. Mixed feelings once again. I am happy that Esteban Ocon started where he finished. If it wasn't for Oliver Behrman's DNF, he would have finished P17. So that would have cheered me up. But I'm sad because Ollie Behrman, while running in the points, he was running P10 consistently in the first stint, made up a position, and unfortunately got some damage to the diffuser of his car, the rear of his car. I don't know if it was the diffuser. Maybe he scraped the floor somewhere on some curb, and then some shit has happened. And because of that, the damage was significant. He was dropping like a stone, and they had to pull him in. So there's nothing much to talk about. It's unfortunate that these guys have a fast car. Since Belgium, like in the Belgian Grand Prix weekend, they were quick. Both of these Haas cars were in the points in Belgium in the sprint race. In the main race, some issue happened, and now in Hungaroring, the same thing happened. Esteban Ocon, obviously he's cursed. I'm cursing him with all my might. But Oliver Behrman, for some reason, either he finishes P11 or he doesn't finish at all. Now in the Hungarian Grand Prix, he was not supposed to finish, so he got the P11 on the qualifying day itself. So he needs to change his car number into 11. Sergio Perez is not on the grid anymore, and this is the best time to go ahead and put the number 11 on your car. This is the only way he is going to negate the P11 curse. Up next, we have the Williams. We kind of expected these guys to struggle. Both of the drivers have been pretty vocal about it. There's nothing much to say about each of their performances. Only thing is Carlos Sainz, he actually did a good job at the start of the race. Started on the softs, made up a position, and kind of held on to that position for a significantly long period of time, which actually overall helped his race, but it didn't even matter because they simply didn't have any pace. And the same story goes with Alexander Albon. Regardless of what kind of strategy they could use, they were not just breaking into the points. It was just very difficult. There was a DRS train, and even when you pit into traffic. Right? Like throughout the Hungarian Grand Prix, there are a group of cars everywhere, gaggle of cars fighting among each other. And sometimes when you pit into a different gaggle of cars, a different group of cars who are having their own battle. So while going through them, even on fresh rubber, you will lose significantly a lot of time, like Max Verstappen did. We'll talk about him in a second. And this is the same problem that happened with both of the Williams. They were either stuck in whatever gaggle of cars or group of cars they were in, and even when they pitted, there was no free air basically to go ahead and show their pace, which kind of worked out for them because they didn't have any pace. It's now looking concerning about their position in the constructor standings, Because right now, all the other teams, for example, both of the Racing Bulls, for instance, were about to score points this race. Isaac Hadjar got a little bit unlucky with his finger injury, and some other shit has happened. We'll talk about it in a second. Then Gabriel Bortolito is consistently in the points. These guys must be thanking God that Nico Hülkenberg is shit at qualifying in 2025 season so far. It has been a trend. He does not know how to exit Q1. I think if the only person who can break Lance Stroll's Q1 exits record is Nico Hülkenberg. So because of Nico Hülkenberg's mistakes in the quali and because of Isaac Hadjar's bad luck, both of the Saubers and both of the Racing Bulls were not in the points. But they could have been, and this is going to be a threat for these motherfuckers in the constructor standings. So they need to get their shit together quick. On the tracks where they're better, they are experiencing reliability issues, the cooling issues, Alexander Albon engine cooling issues, and Carlos Sainz brake cooling issues. They seem to have sorted it out mostly, but it's hard to say in Hungaroring because maybe they were doing like, I need to go ahead and look at the telemetry data. But I think they have sorted out the cooling issues because Hungaroring is a low average speed track, a lot of corners, the cars are running hot, and they did not have any like out of the blue significant problems. They were expecting each other to be slow, and they were way outside of the points, comfortably outside of the points, but it seems that the reliability issues are gone away. Now the next challenge for these guys is to go ahead and capitalize each of the Grand Prix that they're good at, each of the tracks that they're good at, because on the tracks that they're shit at, that they're really shit at it, and it gives the opportunity for Racing Bulls who are pretty strong. Their car is very strong, and so has Sauber. So you have to go ahead and fight against them. So up next we have Verstappen.com Racing. The first thing I want to tell is that right now, beyond an iota of doubt, it is proven that the Red Bull cars are slower than the Racing Bull cars. No one can argue that anymore because earlier Christian Horner, Paul Monaghan, all those dumb motherfuckers that are in Red Bull right now who are fucking it up, they had the benefit of doubt by saying that, well, Verstappen is winning, he's fighting for podiums, he's getting pole positions, but now you cannot say this shit. Because of a mistake in Q3, both of the Racing Bulls could not qualify ahead of Max Verstappen, otherwise they would have. Towards the last phase of the qualifying, the track condition and the wind changed a bit, and Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar are both rookies who couldn't adopt as effectively. That's why they qualified P9 and P10 right behind Max Verstappen. Understandable. Then the race begins, and I'm thinking if Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar finish ahead of Max Verstappen, and I predicted that, didn't work out. I also predicted Lewis Hamilton to finish ahead of Max Verstappen, but the guy is shit. We'll talk about him when we'll talk about him. And I was thinking, like, okay, if Liam and Isaac put a move on Max Verstappen, it's going to look them motherfuckers pretty bad. And initially, Liam did. Liam momentarily got ahead of Verstappen, and then Verstappen got the position back. And it just shows that the Racing Bull can switch their tires on, can have the traction, can win in these close-to-close combat battles. And Max Verstappen, all the credit to him, he did the best he could. Had a two-stop strategy. Ultimately, it was not the fastest way around the Hungaroring because there is not many overtaking opportunities. It's very difficult to overtake, and if you're stuck in a DRS train, you're basically stuck in a DRS train. But after that, after Max Verstappen's second pit stop, he was attacking Liam Lawson, and Liam was holding his own. This is a critical point because Liam, on a one-stop on worn hard tires, which were older than Verstappen's tires at the time, Verstappen still couldn't manage to put any kind of real threat or pressure on Liam Lawson. I mean, he got close many a times. But unfortunately, because the Red Bull is a shitbox, his exit out of turn 1 into the second DRS zone, where usually you can seal the overtake, is what I'm saying. Like, that's the part you cement the gain. That's where he was losing time because he had to do a lot of steering correction when exiting turn 1. And thanks to all of the genius engineers in Milton Keynes for making a shitbox for this guy. And in the remainder of the season, Verstappen predicted that in the remainder of 2025, they're not going to win shit. Which is a fair assumption. And now I have also said this a little bit before, I'm going to say this again, is that Verstappen made a monumental mistake staying in Red Bull. I'm going to make another video about this because Red Bull now will have to take a step back before they can go forward. They're going to a new era of regulation change without Adrian Newey, without Rob Marshall, without all of the geniuses that have led to Max Verstappen dominance and also were responsible for Sebastian Vettel era back in the 2010s. Those people are not here anymore, and they're going into the next era of regulation change. The second thing is, in the first Sebastian Vettel era, they had the Renault engine, which was dominant at the time. In the second era of Max Verstappen, they had the Honda engine, which was pretty good and reliable. In the third era, these motherfuckers are making their own engines. So Max Verstappen made a huge mistake staying in Red Bull, should have gotten out of it, probably couldn't invoke the exit clause in his contract. Towards the end of the season, I'm predicting Verstappen to drop behind, obviously, George Russell, but also Charles Leclerc as well in the championship standings. I think that's definitely going to happen. And there's nothing much to say about Verstappen because when you are in the midfield around a track like Hungarian, your race is basically done. And I said this like in the previous video when I was reacting to the qualifying performance, because when you're in the midfield, you're around hungry motherfuckers who are impoverished of points for the majority of the season, right? For those motherfuckers in the midfield, scoring a bunch of points is everything. And they're going to fight tooth and nail for every position on every corner, and you don't want that. You don't want to go to the trenches with the young guys, with the midfield cars, with the underdogs, because they're going to bite. And if you go ahead and send it down the inside and do what Max Verstappen does, basically, it's going to end up backfiring. Right now, there's only one car that scores point, and that's why I've been calling them Verstappen.com Racing instead of their original name. But yeah, Max Verstappen is going to endure a very difficult second half of the season, but it really doesn't matter because he's going to have all of his fun in sim racing. I am thinking of getting a simulator as well. But anyway, Yuki Tsunoda, as usual, finished where he deserves to. There are spots of hope for Yuki, but in reality, this guy's never improving at all. This is his 4th year in Formula 1, I think 5th year in Formula 1 or whatever. And the only cars that finished behind Yuki Tsunoda are the 2 Alpines and the DNF'd Oliver Bearman. Those are the 3 people that finished behind Yuki Tsunoda. Great job by Yuki Tsunoda for not fucking it up, not causing a collision and picking up a 10-second penalty. So I guess we can be happy about something. But these guys are now going to struggle in the midfield for the foreseeable future. Their only Hail Mary hope is to capitalize on next year's change of regulations, which I doubt, because all of the people who have been successful in these transition periods, who are responsible for the Red Bull success in those transition periods, are not here anymore. So I guess we'll see about that. Up next, the Racing Bulls. Finally, I was wondering from the beginning of the season, from China actually, when Isaac Hadjar out-qualified Yuki Tsunoda in his second Grand Prix. Goes to show how shit Yuki Tsunoda is in terms of learning and progressing. But either way, from China, I was wondering when these guys will beat Red Bull. And now, going into the summer break, that has happened. Liam Lawson, a guy who has been chewed up and spit out by Red Bull Racing, has took his revenge. He started behind Max Verstappen, finished ahead of Max Verstappen, made the one-stop strategy work. Good qualifying, good race pace management, good defense against Max Verstappen. Initially, off the line, I think he got the position from Max. Then Max actually got the position back him. He used a lot of grip in that process. But then Liam Lawson did an amazing job in extending his stint and then getting onto the hard tires and also preserving his tires, making sure that Verstappen stays behind. And Verstappen was pushing. Verstappen always pushes, but he was calm and his exit out of turn 1 was amazing, and he just never got stressed because deep down he knows that he has a better car which is stable, which has a better balance around the corners, which is critical in a track like Hungarian. So big shout out to Liam Lawson. After being depressed after the first 2 races in 2025, he's now back on the grind. Isaac Hadjar, on the other hand, this guy's a little bit unlucky. There is not much to say about it other than the fact that he got injured a little bit. He took a lot of gravels to his fingers. He was wincing in pain. I don't know how much of that contributed, but that definitely had a contribution. The thing about Isaac is that he is super quick, especially in quali. Okay, we can ignore the Hungarian quali because the conditions changed massively in the second half of Q3, and that's why these two guys, being rookies, couldn't adapt to it as effectively as the others. That's understandable, and this is a problem that can be fixed with experience. So it's a matter of time before these guys become immune to rapidly changing track conditions in the qualifying sessions to put in a good lap time. That's understandable. But Isaac Hadjar, great in qualifying, very good in race, but unlucky. I think it's the French thing which is affecting him. So he needs to change his nationality. I don't know which country he can go to. Probably Germany. I think that's the most logical way. If you're French and you want to go to a different country, change your nationality, basically go to Germany. But either way, I predicted that both of the Racing Bulls will score the points, but it almost happened. I'm not going to sit here and say and give some excuses, but it almost happened. If Isaac Hadjar didn't get those stones in his hand, but either way, the Racing Bulls are officially faster than the Red Bull, and the second half of the season, where most cars have already put a pin on the car, now they will only make like setup changes and use the parts that have already been produced for track specific changes. Apart from that, there are going to be no changes. So right now in the second half of the season, we will calculate and see who scores how many points. I'm predicting that in the second half of 2025, these two motherfuckers, if they get their shit together, if Liam Lawson fixes his qualifying issues, I know he qualified well in Hungarian compared to Isaac Hadjar, but usually Liam Lawson is not that good in qualifying. He needs to fix that shit, and Isaac Hadjar needs to fix his luck. Go ahead and get the citizenship of Germany or whatever it is, but Germans are also unlucky. Whatever it is, go ahead and fix those luck problems. If his race execution becomes better and his qualifying become better, I don't see why not. They will outscore Max Verstappen in the second half of 2025. And all of this is working out really well for Christian Horner. Because think about it. Christian Horner was fired after the British Grand Prix. The Red Bull was somehow competitive in the British Grand Prix. Verstappen had a great pole position. Yes, because of the setup of the car, they kind of lost track position and it was a difficult race. We get that. Low downforce setting. Understandable. But after Christian has been fired, things are even worse. And right now we're seeing the sister team, the younger team, the junior team is now putting in better performances than Max Verstappen. I guess we will find out how the future holds. Up next, we have Kick Sauber. They continue their run of scoring points. Big shout out to Gabriel Bortoleto for overtaking Lance Stroll. And one of the things that I predicted about Lance Stroll is that he doesn't care about track position. Unlike most of the drivers of the grid, unlike all of the drivers of the grid, all of the drivers in the history of Formula 1, Lance Stroll does not define himself based on the championship points he scores at the end of this race. He is larger than all of us, larger than lives, always taking the high road. He didn't care that Gabriel Bortoleto passed him. Now, another thing I want to say about Gabby is his defense. Because he was behind Fernando Alonso and he knew that Fernando Alonso is a G, and he kind of stuck with him for the entire race. He was 1.62 seconds behind Fernando. He copied the exact pit stop strategy of Fernando. He lapped right one lap after Fernando has did. The only difference is in the freshness of the compounds. Fernando started the race on used mediums and ended it on used hards. Gabriel started it on fresh mediums and ended it on the fresh hards. More importantly, he defended well against Max Verstappen. This is a very critical thing you guys need to know. So, first what happened, the race undergoes and Fernando Alonso is right ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto, and Gabriel is, keeping up with him. He knows that overtaking Fernando on a track like Hungarian is practically impossible. So he knows that he has made a position. He has started P7, now he's in P6. Finishing P6 is going to be amazing. All he needed to do was not make any mistakes, not let Fernando go away too far away, and not let the guys behind, Lance Stroll is not going to attempt a move on him. So he was kind of in a very beautiful place, protected by Fernando Alonso's strategy and mindset, because he can just follow whatever racing line Fernando is doing. You're not going to go wrong with that. And behind you got Lance Stroll. So Lance Stroll is not going to attack you, and also it's hard to overtake anybody on Hungaroring. And if anyone tries to attack Lance Stroll, good luck to them. So Gabriel Bortoleto on a beautiful position, and he just managed his entire race. When Max Verstappen pitted, Verstappen was on a 2-stop, Gabriel 1-stop. So Verstappen pitted, now he's steering through the field. He got through a lot of people, and now he's on the gearbox of Gabriel Bortoleto. And this excited me a little bit, because that was the moment I knew that Max Verstappen will not make any progress. Because first, Gabriel Bortoleto is following Fernando Alonso. And I said this, if you go ahead and check out the post-qualifying reaction video, I said that Gabriel Bortoleto's manager is Fernando Alonso, and under his tutelage, he can learn how to defend well around Hungaroring. And he did just that. I mean, obviously, he is watching Fernando ahead of him, and he's like, Fernando is a beast when it comes to Hungaroring. We will talk a lot about Fernando Alonso when we are talking about Lewis Hamilton next. So Fernando is doing that, and it's impossible to overtake. And Verstappen tried. Verstappen was putting the pressure on Gabi. This is another concerning thing about Red Bull, because he tried to overtake Gabriel Bortoleto on a Sauber, which didn't happen. Obviously, the DRS train, Hungaroring, blah, blah, blah. I get it. But still, he couldn't overtake a Sauber on fresher rubber. Same thing happened when Verstappen tried to overtake a Racing Bull on fresher rubber. So big problems for Red Bull anyway. Gabriel Bortoleto, well managed, used the experience and intelligence of his master, Fernando Alonso. And now he is P6, best ever career finish. Sauber continue their run of podium scoring finishes. And if it weren't for Nico Hülkenberg's improper qualifying form, I mean, he has been shit at qualifying throughout the 2025 season. He needs to go in and look into that. I'm suspecting that it is because of age, because as you grow older, the first thing that goes away is your reflexes, the level at which you focus, tolerating huge amounts of stress and adrenaline coursing through your veins, because that's what qualifying is all about. I think the first thing that goes away with age is that. And I think he needs to find a way to fix that thing. Because if Nico needs to get his shit together, he was good in race. Nico Hülkenberg started P18, finished P13, had a 5-second time penalty because he jumped the start. And despite all of this, he made a position. So Nico Hülkenberg, great in race management, great in race. But unfortunately, when it comes to qualifying, some issues happen. He needs to go and fix that thing. I'm so happy that he got that podium in Silverstone from P19, but again, it shows that his qualifying is not that good. He needs to go and fix his qualifying. Only then they can mount a good challenge against the Racing Bulls and against the Williams. Right now, their advantage is that they have a good car, and both of the drivers seem to be good at managing their races. So the only thing they need to do is fix the problem of Nico Hülkenberg in qualifying, and they will be better than Racing Bulls by default. And they will also be better than the Williams, because the Williams are struggling with their reliability issues. So overall, great job by Sauber. Gabriel Bortoleto deserved the driver of the day. He did whatever I kind of wanted him to do, followed Fernando Alonso for the entirety of the race, basically copied his strategy bit by bit, and deserves the P6 finish. Up next, we have Ferrari. I need to drink some water before I talk about these motherfuckers, because they had a double whammy, is what I'm trying to say. So Ferrari, before this summer break, managed to ruin the races of both of their drivers in different ways, and to give them the complete Ferrari experience. It's actually very amazing and heartwarming to see the dedication that the Scuderia has in making their driver getting used to the depressive cycles in Maranello. So let's talk about Charles Leclerc first, and then we'll talk a little bit about Lewis Hamilton. So Charles Leclerc starts on P1. Great pace. He was 3 seconds ahead of Oscar Piastri at one point. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, Charles's first win of 2025 is coming in Hungaroring, and he's going to win from pole position. How naive I was. Then the pit stop happens, and then Ferrari did something apparently to his car. Like, obviously, we will never know what was the real issue, because Charles was very cryptic on the radio when he was losing the performance, and afterwards he's like, oh, I have some context, we had some issue, we were nursing some issues, sometimes some bullshit cryptic things. But the reality is Ferrari did something to his car. They changed the flap angle of the front wing, apparently. A lot of the commentators were speculating about that. We will never know. But if I had to guess that if it was an actual technical issue versus if Ferrari sabotaged it, I will always pick that Ferrari sabotaged it. That's the way the things have been gone. And this is just a reality of life that we and Charles Leclerc have to get used to. If you're running well, then your team will sabotage your race. One of the most evil teams on the grid is Ferrari, destroying the races of their own drivers to make them go through things that don't kill them but make them emotionally stronger. I don't really understand why Charles Leclerc needs to be any more emotionally stronger after 2022, whatever happened on that season. But horrible race for Charles Leclerc. He just went backwards. I was kind of hoping towards the end that he would hold on to the podium position, but the pace deficit was so high that George Russell had multiple attempts on him, and George could have actually got past Charles the lap before he got past Charles. So that's how it goes sometimes, and this is racing. But congratulations to Ferrari for completing one final sequence of Ferrari experience for both of their drivers. The dedication is commendable. And the similar thing goes to Lewis Hamilton. Nothing much to talk about. Started 12th, finished 12th. The problem is he could have tried a better strategy. When I saw Lewis Hamilton starting on the hard tire, I'm like, why the fuck did you do this? This is Hungaroring. There is not a lot of tire advantage that's going to come into play here, because by the time other people, because when you expect that you will be in clear air, you will actually be in the dirty air of people on the two-stop strategy who have completed their first stop. You know what I mean? First stop, you know what I mean? Like, the thing is, let's say you're Lewis Hamilton, you're on the hard tire, you're stuck behind guys who are significantly slower than you on softer compounds, because track position is key around Hungaroring, and also Lewis is not that confident. The Ferrari is kind of a shitbox. Laundry list of reasons why, Lewis should have started on a softer compound. But either way, on the hard tires, and the guys ahead, especially Kimi Antonelli, this guy went on one stop. So that also affected Lewis significantly. And also another person who was responsible for Lewis's demise was Fernando Alonso, because if you look at it, Fernando is the starter. Fernando is the person who started this DRS train, and everybody kind of remained where they were. That's basically it. And Fernando Alonso again contributed to the demise of Lewis Hamilton in the Hungarian Grand Prix. Started 12th, finished 12th, nothing much to say. And Ferrari did a great job of starting Lewis Hamilton on hard tires and then putting him on the medium. He had a soft tire, brand new set of soft tire. If you're going on a one stop, at least try the soft tire, or try the medium tires first. Try the medium tires first, or do something which is aggressive. But obviously you cannot do anything aggressive with Lewis Hamilton these days, because he is useless, his own words, and Ferrari needs to change the driver. And this is an unfortunate thing to see, because we didn't even see much of a ray of hope for Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari. The only hope he has, which I don't think is going to materialize, is that in 2026 Ferrari will get the regulation change right, which is a big if. And even then, he is going to be beaten by a much younger teammate in Charles Leclerc. I will do another video analyzing Lewis's performance in the entire ground effect era, which hasn't been that impressive. There were spots of sunshine, but it's not that good. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton, ground effect era to forget. 2021 was his last season in Formula One. Kind of in hindsight, should have retired. I'm just saying, if he had retired from 2021 after congratulating Max and everybody else, it would have been a great news for Lewis, because he is retiring at the height of his game. He would have more other options, and it kind of shifts the blame onto the FIA for being corrupt as they were in that time, especially in that moment by Michael Massey. But yeah, now he's just going to end in a bad note. Like his career is going to end in a bad note. I can see it happen. Misery for Charles Leclerc, misery for Lewis Hamilton, the complete Ferrari experience. Going into the summer break, these two drivers will be depressed, which is, that's what Ferrari is all about. Up next, we have Aston Martin. Both of these guys had a good race. Lance Stroll also had a good race. For a second, it looked like Fernando Alonso will challenge the top 3 and the top 4 in the qualifying sessions. It kind of looked like that. Obviously, it didn't materialize because it was too good to be true. And Fernando was 1/10 away from pole position, which is not that bad. And Lance Stroll was 1/10 and a bit, like 0.126, and Fernando was 0.109, if I'm being honest, if I'm trying to remember it right. So these two guys, very good race. And like Lance has said, Lance was actually giving some unique, thoughtful answers in the post-race interview. He said that now we need to go and find out what we have done correctly in this weekend so that we can repeat it in other races. I don't think there are many other tracks like this where there are too many corners, low average speed, and things are running a little bit hot. I think these are the type of tracks which suit them. Perhaps in Singapore, perhaps in Qatar, these are the two tracks. But Qatar is a little bit free-flowing in the final sector, so I don't know what they're going to do. But Singapore definitely looks like a good track for Aston Martin right now. There's nothing much to say except for Fernando Alonso, who held 14 cars in the DRS range. I'll put this link in the description below. Big shout out to whoever posted this ashamed purchase 9033. But Fernando, he happily ruined everybody's races. A lot of people, especially Lewis Hamilton, especially Isaac Hadjar and Max Verstappen, their progress was hindered significantly because of Fernando Alonso. Because Fernando was following a particular racing line and Bortoleto copied him word for word, which means it was impossible for anyone behind them to make the overtake. And Max Verstappen was stuck behind Gabriel Bortoleto, means you can understand that nobody is passing Gabriel Bortoleto. If Max cannot get past someone with fresher rubber, relatively fresher rubber, and a faster car, I assume at this point, because I don't know, no one really knows the true pace of the Red Bull. I would like to believe that they're kind of like a backmarker type of team, but we'll never know. Right now they're midfielders. But Verstappen couldn't manage to get ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto because of Fernando Alonso. So what a magical driver. He managed his pace, especially in the first stint, and he did his entire race on used tires. Started on used mediums, ended on used hards. I don't know how he did it. Fernando magic. Up next, we have Mercedes. So George Russell, there's nothing much to say about it. Some people will say that he defended very well against Lando Norris and that's why he's on the podium, but not really. He's on the podium because Ferrari fucked Charles Leclerc. That's the only reason. So it's kind of like a did nothing, got on the podium, that sort of performance by George Russell. So I don't want to, waste any more time talking about him. But one thing we need to keep in mind is that George Russell is one of the elements which is going to affect the outcome of the 2025 Drivers' World Championship. He's going to get in between both of the McLarens, and he will make sure that one McLaren loses a little bit of extra time compared to the other, which is going to affect or play into how the race pans out. And judging by how close Piastri and Norris are, it can affect the outcome of the championship. So that's all about George Russell. Fuck him. Let's talk about Kimi Antonelli. Great performance by him. Started P15, finished P10. He is going into the summer break with a positive mindset because his last run of races were not that good. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as a team, Mercedes have done a better job of identifying that with the upgrades they are gone in the wrong direction, and they have rolled back the changes and recaptured some of their performance. And Kimi Antonelli was doing really good, executed the one-stop race beautifully and went ahead, substantially ahead, and his dive bomb move on Carlos Sainz was amazing. He just sent it like he was nowhere. It looked like he wouldn't go ahead and attempt an overtake on the smooth operator, but he did, and I'm glad that he did. He is finding his rhythm back, finding his confidence back. He can be happy with the performance. It's only 1 point, but he has to be happy with that performance. Mercedes on the rebound, And I think it's a matter of time. I think by Zandvoort, judging by how things are going, George Russell will be ahead of Max Verstappen in the championship standings. I think he's going to be P3 in the Drivers' Championship standings, which is a great achievement for the Milky Boy Latte. Up next, we have the title contenders McLaren. So, a few things, I already made a detailed video about this, but a few things I want to say is that great job to Lando Norris for stealing the momentum away from Oscar Piastri. This is what he needed. This is what he had to do. A couple of videos ago, I talked about how it's now or never for Lando Norris, that he must win the Hungarian Grand Prix. I've said about this. Because going into the summer break, what Lando did not need is Oscar thinking that, oh, I got this covered. Lando is a bitch. I got this covered. I'm going to win this world championship. Obviously, like he already does think like that, but if Lando did not win the Hungarian Grand Prix from P3 by executing an ambitious one-stop despite losing time behind Osama bin Russell and losing time to the back markers, if he didn't win, it would have reinforced Oscar's belief. Because the Hungarian Grand Prix is a Lando Norris track. I was expecting Lando to get pole, but for some reason he fucked up and made a few mistakes and he was slower on the second half of the Q3 session. That is that. But in the race he came back, and it also proved another hypothesis I had about Lando Norris, which is that he becomes stronger as the race progresses. A few weeks ago, I made a detailed analysis video about Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris after the first 12 races of 2025 were completed after Silverstone. And I explained in that video that Lando Norris, if you have not made the overtake on Lando Norris in the first half of the race, you're probably not going to make an overtake on him in the second half of the race. It's just not happening. Because he just becomes better and better. And he confirmed it. After the race, in the post-race interview, he said that my strength is to manage the tires, manage the stint better, and extract the maximum out of a tire in the overall stint. And he played to his strengths, and he did that, and he nailed it, and he won this race through grit and determination and focus. Oscar Piastri made a few mistakes. I know he doesn't say too much, and he's like, well, just things just happen, but Oscar Piastri didn't push Charles Leclerc hard enough on the first stint. Because in the first stint, Charles was able to pull a 3-second gap on Oscar Piastri. That's a bit too much at one point. During the pit stops, when Oscar dived into the pits with the box to overtake Charles Leclerc radio call, he was 1.6 seconds behind, but still, Oscar Piastri needed to push Charles Leclerc, because this is what would have happened. If he had pushed Charles Leclerc, the first thing is he would have pulled away from George Russell and Lando Norris. Big gap. Buffer. You need that around Hungaroring. That's the first thing. The second thing, you would have pushed Charles Leclerc to use up his tires. That's a critical thing if you plan to undercut the car ahead. You have to destroy their tires and then catch them by surprise in the pit stops. Because if there is life left in Leclerc's tires and you dive into the pit stops with a 1.6 seconds gap with the intention of making the undercut work, and you're going to the hard tires and he is on the mediums which still have some life left in them, the difference in time of your first out lap and their in lap is not going to be that much. It's not going to be 1.6 seconds is what I'm trying to say. So Oscar Piastri needs to go ahead and find out some strategy, find out what he can do, how he can attack. There are places in race where you need to attack, leave it on the table, just like Fernando was doing. Fernando, even when he was running his own race and he had a nice gap, this is the brilliance of Fernando Alonso. He had a nice gap to the guys in front, so that he could comfortably push when he wanted and take it easy when he wanted. Nobody is overtaking Fernando. And these are the type of lessons that Oscar Piastri needs to learn. And this is a weakness that Oscar Piastri has compared to Lando Norris. Nico Rosberg said after the Belgian Grand Prix that we cannot say that Lando has a definitive advantage. We cannot say that he is quicker, but he has a clear advantage when it comes to managing the entire stints and extracting the maximum out of a set of tires. He does that well. He showed it well. As the race progressed, He entered the flow state. I mean, he's a slow starter. Lando has a lot of weaknesses too that Oscar Piastri doesn't, but Oscar still needs to improve in this aspect of the game. He needs to learn where to push. He needs to learn how to maximize the stint. He needs to learn how to read the race. He needs to learn how to make the most out of every moment in the Grand Prix. If he had pushed Leclerc hard, he would have a bigger gap to George Russell. There were no safety cars in the race. He would have a bigger gap to George Russell, and also the undercut could have worked, is all I'm trying to say. So Oscar Piastri, a little bit of homework to do. Now he's going into the summer break feeling the pressure of the championship because there's only 9 points between them. Still a lot. Still Oscar Piastri is leading the world championship. 9 points is still a lot considering how closely matched these two motherfuckers are. But there are going to be more tracks that will play to Lando Norris's advantage. I would say Vegas kind of plays into Norris's advantage. Abu Dhabi, then Qatar, Singapore, all of these tracks are going to play to Lando's advantage. And it seems that he still has the advantage when it comes to managing the stints. So Oscar Piastri needs to learn how to do that better, considering what we saw in the 2025 Hungarian Grand Prix with random drivers like Charles Leclerc and George Russell getting in the middle of the two McLarens. Because this is going to happen in down the road. And in the future, if there are other contenders between two McLarens, Oscar Piastri or Lando Norris, whoever it is, they need to think on the spot and what they need to do immediately. Lando Norris demonstrated this in the Hungarian Grand Prix, and this is something that we have been lacking in the title fight, that thinking on the spot, outthinking your teammate, undercutting, overcutting, and making it work. I think this is the first undercut attempt and alternate strategy attempt that worked out in the favor of the driver in McLaren. In Belgium, they tried it when Lando Norris went on the hard tires trying to overtake Oscar Piastri towards the end. That didn't work out, but in Hungary it worked out. So now the title fight is a little bit more interesting than what it used to be, and I'm excited for the remaining half of the season. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.